And joining us live for much more to talk about the first week of this historic trial is defense attorney and trial attorney Misty Marris. Misty, welcome to the show. Look, it's historic. We finally have 12 jurors and the alternates. What are your thoughts, on the jurors that we have so far, the ones that have been seated so far? I've gone down a rabbit hole looking at their professions. I know that we've got investment bankers, we've got lawyers, teachers, speech therapists. What can we garner from them?
Yeah, absolutely. Such a diverse group of individuals, diverse by all sorts of different professions, areas that they live in New York City, and a lot of them. Interestingly enough, there was so much focus on where news is consumed. And we've seen some interesting jurors who consume from the New York Times and Fox News. And so it was really interesting to see these jurors get seated. Look, the ultimate goal for both sides is to have a jury that can sit in that room, sit in the jury box, listen to the evidence, and base any determination on that evidence and nothing outside the courtroom. So this was a very thorough process. 42 questions, thorough social media searches. The voir dire process was pretty tight. So hopefully these jurors will fulfill that duty of impartiality.
And Missy, just before, in case we have an interruption sort, we are expecting to hear from the New York Police Department in any moment now. So apologies in advance if I have to interrupt you. But look, let's talk to what some of the tensions that seems to be ratcheting up already, and it hasn't even got underway. And that's the prosecution we've heard today, Missy. Won't even share the witness list. I mean, how do you interpret that?
Oh, there's so much battling between the two sides, between the prosecution and the defense. And look, all of those issues are ultimately going to go before the judge. So the judge in this case, he has his work cut out for him because each side is really pulling out all the stops, and there's a lot of advocacy. Look, that's what we do as lawyers. We zealously advocate for our client or for New York. And so we're going to see a lot of these issues, I think, throughout the trial. We're going to see a lot of sidebars. We're going to see a lot of out-of-court hearings relating to issues about how evidence is going to be presented, witnesses, and how the court proceeding is actually going to go forward. I think it's really foreshadowing what we'll see throughout this trial.
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, looking ahead to Monday, of course, where we're going to hear opening statements, what will that look like? What are we likely to hear from the get-go?
So the prosecution, they provide the roadmap. Remember, they have the burden of proof. So they are going to go through all of the entries that were qualified as legal fees that serve as the basis for these falsified documents. And then they're going to talk about what was happening at that time. Donald Trump was running for president of the United States. And they're going to talk about how these payments to Stormy Daniels were in furtherance of squashing that because of the election. That's going to be a central part of the prosecution's case. They're going to focus on that. Donald Trump's team, on the other hand, they're going to argue that there's no evidence that there wasn't a mixed motivation for silencing Stormy Daniels, that the agreement, the hush money, that's not illegal on its face. So they're going to say that it's the prosecution's burden. But we're going to hear a lot in those opening statements because that's where the jury really gets the sense of both sides of the case, and it really sets the tone for what the jurors are going to listen for as the trial unfolds.
And also next week, and we're all going to need, particularly you're going to need a lot of coffee because there's also a hearing on whether Donald Trump violated the gag order, right? So how are you expecting this, Missy, to play out?
So there's actually two big hearings. One's going to happen today at 3:15, but you're right. Next week, there's going to be a hearing regarding the gag order and what could happen. The judge is going to go back through all of these instances, which are, I can't even keep track of how many there are right now because it keeps changing every single day. The prosecutors have said there's more and more violations of the gag order. The judge is going to have to look at each one of those alleged violations and determine whether or not it rises to the level of what would be punishable. And if the first set of punishment, it's financial, it's a fine. If the conduct continues, it's likely that Donald Trump would be admonished. And if the conduct continues, he could actually be held in jail. That's how severe it can get.
Misty, get some rest. It's going to be a long week, right, for all of us. Thanks very much. Thank you very much, Misty.
Absolutely.
We're going to